Explaining being is inherently difficult. But why? Because explaining the essence of thought requires you to think, which is the exact opposite of being. It's paradoxically difficult to verbalize and maybe even conceptualize within the limits of the mind. I created this video to simplify the art of being. To get a handle on something as abstract as being, I've broken down this concept into 3 relatable steps: recognition, understanding, and embodiment. Let's start with recognition. The first step to being is recognition. But what are you recognizing? The fact that you are a 3-part being: mind, body, and soul, or thought, form, and consciousness. Let's look at this core understanding in more detail. We understand the body and form very easily. We can touch it, feel it, and see it. Now let's look at the mind and thought next. We also understand thoughts. We have them pretty much non-stop throughout the day. The tricky part about thought, however, is where do the thoughts come from? Our thoughts come from the lives we've lived. They're based on our belief systems that most likely were created by our earthly experiences. This is how thought can trick you and lead you off course. This is why recognizing your thoughts and where they come from is paramount in the recognition phase. Now to the soul, the most complex part of your being. First, how do we even know it exists? The easiest way I can illustrate this is, have you ever been torn about making a decision? Have you ever really not wanted to do something, but felt like you absolutely had to do it? Where do you think this opposition in your own thought comes from? The soul. Anytime you've been struggling with a choice, there is always that one thing that is gnawing at you deeply. That is your soul trying to communicate with you. And this is how you recognize the parts of your being. Now that we've identified and recognized the 3 parts of our being, we can now move on to the next phase, understanding. Let's focus on the 2 most important parts of your being and get to know them intrinsically. These 2 parts, the mind and the soul, create the human being. Human meaning mind and thought, soul meaning being and consciousness itself. And for this reason, they define who and what you are at a core level. To understand the mind, in addition to knowing where your thoughts come from, you also have to be ready and willing to ask, why? Why do you have these thoughts? How do these thoughts make you feel? And most importantly, do I even need to have these feelings at all? In order to see how your mind works for or against you, you must be able to observe the mind. This is where your soul comes in. Please allow me to do my best to explain something that is beyond thought. The soul gives us the ability to be aware of thought, to stand back and observe that which is, to be able to observe the existence of something. Let's practice this for a moment. Imagine a thought you have as a bubble in front of you. This thought is not of you, rather, it's in front of you as its own thing. Now see yourself examining that bubble. It's about 5 feet away from you. The space between you and the bubble, or thoughts, is what allows you the freedom of disassociation from the thought, which when done correctly and consistently offers levels of peace many humans have yet to experience. This is what moving towards your soul, the real you, the act of simply being, can do for you, a human being. Ponder for a moment what that freedom would mean in your own personal life. This brings us to our last and final step, embodiment. Now that we've recognized the parts of us, and we've also begun to understand how these parts work, where do we go from here? Well, since we are a three-part being, what if we created a unified, balanced human being? Because the soul is our primary awareness, it is the truth and the purest essence of who and what we are, not burdened by fear, judgment, or limitation. It should be viewed as the highest expression of self. The mind still has its rightful place in decision-making and taking action. However, always be able to view thoughts objectively from the perspective of your highest self. This is the balance you are looking for between the being, soul, and the doing, mind, better described as masculine and feminine energy. The being, the soul, the subconscious, feminine, receptive energy. And the doing, the mind, the conscious, masculine, assertive energy. When you begin to align with the vision of your highest self and are able to simply work with the mind to create a new life, a new you, and a new existence, one free of judgment, fear, and unnecessary thought, this is when you're able to simply be. Are you ready?